I love the Mana series. You know the one. Starting with Secret of Mana, moving on to the Japanese-only Seiken Densetsu 3. Wait, 3? Is there one we're missing? Well, yeah. Maybe you heard of Final Fantasy Adventure. Technically speaking, it's the first game in the series, with Secret of Mana being the big brother. I never played the original, but I regularly play Secret of Mana, and have played a translated ROM of Seiken Densetsu 3 many years ago, although I never finished it. Hell, I was able to pick up a Super Famicom card of it a few years back in a consignment shop. I couldn't pass it up, even though I know I wouldn't understand the Japanese. But one of the games I played a few times overseas was a Game Boy Advance RPG known as Sword of Mana. In fact, if I remember correctly, I requested it for Christmas while deployed. I'm pretty sure I didn't get far in it because I also played games like Pokemon Ruby, Golden Sun, Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance, which I'm missing nowadays for some stupid reason, and Final Fantasy Tactics. I decided to finally play Sword of Mana again and complete it, and while doing research for the game's series, I learned that it's actually a remake of the original game of the series, Final Fantasy Adventure. Huh, you really do learn something new every day. Sword of Mana is an action RPG that doesn't stray far from the previous games in the series. You play as either a boy or girl who you get to name. I'm not sure on the story of the girl, but playing as the boy, you start with a dream of his past as a child, in which he witnesses someone of power slaying his family. He's kidnapped while trying to help a girl escape, and then fast forward many years later with the boy in captivity and forced to fight in a monster coliseum. Him and his pal Willie manage to escape, and while Willie surrenders, the boy falls after trying to strike the Dark Lord. He swears revenge, blah blah blah, standard RPG story from here on out. The game's mechanics feel more like Seiken Densetsu 3 over Secret of Mana. You press A to attack, and B to run. There is no weight meter like in Secret of Mana, so you can spam attack as fast as you're able to. In exchange for that wait time, there's a new meter underneath your health that charges as you attack enemies. Once it's full, you can unleash a more powerful attack by holding down the A button. You'll know it's ready once your character starts flashing green. Truthfully, I didn't use it often as I just didn't think it was all that necessary. The downside to this is that my character was almost always flashing green while in combat situations. Oh well. Of course, there are elemental spirits that can be found within the game. Each one has exactly one support and one attack magic. In order to perform these, you select which spirit you want to equip in the menu, and then use the R button to cast it. If you tap it, the support spell is unleashed. If you hold it, the attack spell is used. Sadly, every elemental summon has identical attack magic, other than the color used, signifying the element. Of course, some monsters are affected differently by different spirits. The other thing of note is that the actual attack magic that is cast is dependent on the weapon that you're using. If you're holding the sword, the magic attack is a simple pillar of energy that appears in front of you. If you're holding the bow, you'll throw a blast that has the same trajectory as an arrow. Speaking of weapons, there's your normal selection. Swords, spears, bows, gloves, flails. Everyone has one of 3 different attack types: bashes, jabs, and slash. Just like the magic, certain enemies can be either weak or immune to certain attack types. Because of this, you'll be constantly switching weapons around. This happens often enough so that it gets flat out annoying at times. And since you get multiple weapons that may have the same attack type, such as slash, there's often not a need to use any new weapons since you'll probably have the first one leveled up further already, and therefore it's more powerful by default. The only exception I found to this was using the spear instead of the bow, since it attacked a bit faster. Of course, as you destroy enemies, you'll gain level ups. Once you earn one, the words level up appear on your character, and they will not leave you until you go into the menu and assign where you want your stats to increase. In this regard, you choose one of 6 options, and the game will show you the preview of what your stats will increase to if you choose that option. Well, other than the random option, since that is, well, random. Upon leveling up, you may also get a message stating that your class has changed, and along with the new title comes some extra perks, such as bonus weapon damage. This mechanic honestly feels a bit broken though, as I've only had the class change twice. I thought I would be considered a thief or a rogue or something since I put about 95% of my stat points into that path, but nope. I started off as a berserker, and and then change it into something starting with an A. A seer, I think? Either way, I can't help but wonder if this mechanic was actually fleshed out as it was originally intended. I don't think it's the case. In addition, weapons and magic will level up on their own. Weapons do so just by doing damage to enemies, and that's why I mentioned that it's a good idea to find a weapon you like and stick with it as much as possible. As for the magic, level ups work the same way, in which they gain experience by doing damage to enemies. That means that support spells, such as the healing spell you'll probably come to rely on, will not level up Wisp. So in order to level them up, you have to attack using magic. Thankfully, there are several ways to regain your MP. Leveling up will replenish it fully, along with your HP, as well as using golden goddess statues. There's also a new sit mechanic that you can utilize. By holding L and A at the same time, your character will sit and increase your MP slowly. You can do this at will, so if you have the patience, you can easily grind out a bunch of XP levels, since almost all non-boss enemies will continually respawn in each area. You might think that it's dangerous to sit down in areas with monsters still walking around, but that's not normally the case. That's because the AI of the game, both friendly and enemy, seems to be really subpar. Your allied partner gets stuck on terrain way too often, especially when jumping to a higher or lower platform is required. Truthfully, when they died because of their own stupidity, I never revived them, as I never really got into situations where I needed an extra hand. Enemies will also tend to just do their own thing and only attack you if it conveniences them. I only really felt I was in danger in the ending parts of the game since the enemies do a lot more damage. There were times I sat down to increase my MP. Enemies respawned in, and just kind of roamed around me. Because of this, in theory, you could run past most enemies without needing to battle them, although this probably isn't a good idea since you do want to level up a bit. Speaking of enemies, there are a lot of recognizable ones. It wasn't often when I saw an enemy that I felt was new, but I had no problems with that. I wish the music had returned though, because in my humble and worthless opinion, it kinda sucks in Sword of Mana. Game Boy Advance games have a tendency of sounding scratchy, and Sword of Mana is no exception to this. Coming off a fresh playthrough of Golden Sun, I was really disappointed with this one. There was only one track I actually enjoyed, and the rest of the game was just kind of blah. It's really a shame after the previous Super Nintendo / Super Famicom games and their amazing soundtracks. At least the graphics look good. There's plenty of color and many of the bosses are large and full of detail. The magic is a bit lacking though, but I guess I can't have it all. So let's see, what else do I have to talk about? Well, how about the fact that you can't view a bunch of the more important RPG parts of the game? You can't see the progress toward increasing your weapon or magic power. Sure, you can see what level it's at, but not how far you are towards the next level up. You also can't view any side quests that you have accepted. There weren't a lot that I found, but it would have been nice to have some sort of way to review them, in case you haven't played for a while or even just forgot. I also haven't been able to complete any of them, so I don't know exactly what you'll earn from finishing these quests. But I was able to complete the game fine without any extra compensation, so it's up to you if you want to attempt these optional quests or not. Finally, I felt the game was just way too easy. Even with the combat being stiff, enemies didn't pose much of a threat, and bosses as a whole were complete pushovers. I don't know if it was a glitch or just designed this way, but if you level up the bow enough, you can easily use that to dismantle bosses within seconds. This is because of the way that the bow attacks. The arrow can strike before it leaves the bowstring, and then strike again when it's shot. So there are times when you can strike the boss with 2 or 3 hits with just one arrow. Even the final boss is susceptible to this. Even with this, Sword of Mana isn't a bad game. It's just not a great game either. It's just kinda mediocre, which is a shame considering I love the previous 2 games. The combat feels stiff at times, and can get boring, considering that you just need to mash A. I guess I just missed the combat of Secret of Mana. The music doesn't help to suck me in either. And with the lack of challenge, about 10 hours in, I was ready for the game to be over. If you enjoy the Mana series, I'd recommend at least trying it, as you might enjoy it more than I had. But personally, I don't see myself giving it another go anytime in the next 10 years. Final score? 7 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.